Mauricio Pochettino was asked about the problem of diving in football. An interesting quote from the Spurs coach saying 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it was like, oh, congratulate the player when he tricks the referee in Argentina, but in England too. You believe that in England you were honest and always perfect. That is the football that I was in love with when I was a child. Football is about trying to trick your opponent. Yes or no? Let's start off with the first part of that quote. That's the eldest gentleman on this.
He doesn't know what he's talking about. He absolutely has no clue what he's talking about. Under no circumstances is that how it was played at all. There was a handful of individuals who would try and do that, but to try and tell every single person is complete and utter garbage, and you don't know what you're talking about. If that's how you did it when you grew up, that's fine. But he is talking through you know where if he thinks that's what it was like for everybody. Well, because it was not.
It wasn't.
Excuse me, Craig. I'll tell you, a perfect example is a guy called Ronnie Rosenthal that joined us in 1990. And but for his goals, we wouldn't have won the league that year.
Right.
But I'll tell you what, the first game he played, you've never seen anybody diving so much in your life. And every one of us, to a man, were round him going, what are you doing? Pack it in. So Pochettino does not know what he's talking about when he's trying to label players from my era that were doing that, because it's just not happening.
Now, it has crept into the British game, and it has crept into the British players as well. There's absolutely not a shadow of a doubt about it. But back in the day, Stevie's right. 100% right. You might have had the odd occasion, very odd, but not every week by multiple players. The other side of the coin is, and it is a cultural thing. We only got to talk to your colleague, Ali Moreno, about it. In certain parts of the world, they see things differently. And that, for them, is okay, the way they do it. But for us, and back in the day, and Stevie was before me, it wasn't okay. It's a cultural difference in how they define cheating or tricking.
I just love the fact that he was saying I was after Stevie.
Well, I just wanted to clear that up. It's not clear enough.
No, I agree. And the part that I don't get, and you're exactly right, it's the cultural side. And Stevie's lived it. But when I first went over to England, there was still a lot of players in the game that were still around. And Craig, was just finishing up, and that was still active. I mean, there was still times when you knew when the kickoff came, a center back would know he gets one shot at a defender. He'll make him feel it, and he'll know it from the get-go, and it sort of sets the tone of the game.
But why is there such a stigma around diving? Like, we talked about this before. Decore handles the ball and it goes in the back of the net. Watford get a 2-2 draw against Southampton. Not really a big fuss is made about it. Yeah, he got away with it. It's kind of how we look at it. But when it comes to diving, people seem to be up in arms more. But surely handling the ball is worse,
It's a culture. It's a strange thing. People. It's like spitting. I'll come round and tell you, I would rather somebody came up to me and punched me straight in the face or rattled me across the knees with a free kick than spitting at me. So try and explain that. There are certain things that in the culture that I grew up in and Craig grew up in that certain things were acceptable and certain things weren't. And it's all handed down.
I think that comes to respect. And I disagree with you on the handball situation. You'd go back to Thierry Henry. I guarantee you the Irish are still not happy with it.
No, but of course, it's a massive thing. But for example, Iron Robin, Mexico, Holland, people still talk about that extensively as well, don't they? So I think it all depends on the manner of the match and the intensity. But there seems to be an acceptance. You handle the ball in, you get away with it, well done. You dive, that's kind of against the ethics of the game.
I think there's more diving than there is handballs. You get upset about it, but the diving aspect of it is done with forethought more than the handball is. Sometimes it's just like a reaction and you get away with it. Not to say that's right, because it isn't. What I'm trying to say is that there's more diving than there are intentional handballs. Intentional handballs get seen a lot more than they do the diving aspect of it. And I think from the people that have been around soccer for so long, the diving has changed games in different cultures. You're talking about culture in England not having it, and now it has it. Those things that some people don't want to see, and it gets them infuriated.
But if you play international football, this is if you play a country, if you play Germany or a Scandinavian country, you're having a different chat before the game about how these players may react. If you go to a World Cup or you play a qualifier or whatever, as a friendly, you're playing a team from South America. You're having a different conversation about how far you can push the barrier in terms of contact, because you know player X from this part of the world is unlikely to go to ground or dive, call it what we want. Player Y from this part of the world and their culture is going to go to ground in a heartbeat. And that's just the difference.
And it's the same with the referees. When you see what referee it is in an international game, you're thinking the same thing. How much can you get away with?
Talk about Spurs and what would define success for them so far this season. Of course, they're through to knockout stage of the Champions League, 5th at the moment in the Prem, out of the Carabao Cup in the 4th round. It's been a strange old season for Spurs. I seem to remember us talking just a few months ago, Craig, that they were the biggest competitors to City. That, of course, faded out. They impressed by beating Real Madrid and Dortmund in the Champions League. But there is a certain feeling, isn't there, that this could be another kind of mediocre season for Spurs.
Well, I mean, if they could knock Juventus out and get to the quarter-finals, I mean, that would be some scalp. Let's be honest. But there has been, and some of the players have mentioned it. I think Harry Kane was quoted 3 or 4 months ago saying we have to start winning things. So I think Pochettino, the coach, is acutely aware that they have got to start being in the hunt for FA Cups and stuff. They're not at the level of winning the Champions League. They've got a fair bit to go in that sense, and they're not guaranteed to get in the top 4. So I think it is about winning trophies for them. But then again, in this day and age, getting in the top 4 seems to be the trophy that everybody wants.
So what's success? Top 4 and Spurs have had a good season?
I think then if you're just top 4 and you don't win a trophy, then you have to add in the other parts. And Craig's exactly right. Juventus would be a nice victory to take away. But I almost look at this, the way they've continued to add quality to the team with experience, that they're looking that they should be at least in the semifinals of Champions League. I know that's up there for them, but I assume that they've got to be looking that way. They've shown they can beat good teams. They've shown that they can have some big results. They just need to be more consistent. And quite honestly, a trophy would be very helpful for that.
They finished second last year in the league, didn't they? That's right.
So they've dropped off. So they've got worse.
So say they clamber in 4th and don't win the FA Cup and are unlikely to win the Champions League, then it's been a poorer season for them. That's the big pressure that I think Pochettino's under. But he doesn't seem to be under it from the fans. The fans seem quite happy with what
I suppose the fans would argue, when you take a look at the money that City and United have spent, that it's impossible for them to compete, isn't it?
I don't think Pochettino can get away with that one anymore. He's been there long enough, and he's had enough pats on the back, enough praise that his team should be winning something.
But it's a valid argument, isn't it? Lowest wages of the top 6. Your boys just went and spent goodness knows how much on Van Dijk. Spurs don't do that. They don't have the resources to do
let's not bother playing the games then. So the one that's got the most money, then that's fine. No, Pochettino has been hailed for the last 2 seasons as this up-and-coming coach that can go right to the top. Well, he's got no silverware. His team this season has been the most inconsistent they've been for the last 3 seasons. And the fact that they topped Real Madrid in their group, they have to get to the quarter-final stages, and they must get in the top 4. If they don't get in the top 4, this season has been wasted.
And if they want to hold on to players, Dan, because we know the Harry Kanes of this world are not... I mean, he should be on top dollar. Absolutely top dollar, but he's not.
Yeah.
Because as you mentioned, they've got a wage structure that they kind of adhere to a certain extent. But if they don't make the top 4, and it's still a big if because they're clearly in the hunt, then they've no Champions League football next year. They're going to be moving to this new stadium, which they're pushing as that's going to, make them being able to keep up with the Joneses. But we've seen what happened to Arsenal when all this promises from Arsenal. We're moving to the new stadium and going to be able to spend like Real Madrid and Barca and all this. It hasn't happened. So there's no guarantee it's going to happen.
Real Madrid are in search of a new striker. According to the media, we had Harry Kane on the front page last month, Lewandowski on the front page of Marca this week. So we asked you, who would you prefer at Real Madrid, Lewandowski or Kane? Who is better? Lewandowski coming in at 55%, Kane 45%. Let's go to the striker on the panel, shall we? Mr. McBride, who are you picking?
If that's the question, who's better?
Yes.
I think Lewandowski is the more complete player.
Definitely.
Why? I just think that he's more polished. Having Harry Kane can do an incredible job of all these different things. The one thing that I think looking at, if we're talking about Real Madrid going after a player, Harry Kane gives you more pace up front. And that more pace, that quicker style, allows them to spread the game out a little bit more. You've seen Cristiano Ronaldo drop off in his pace. He's not running past people like he used to. And I think the addition of that pace that Kane can provide might be a better fit for Real Madrid.
So Lewandowski's better, but Real Madrid should get Kane.
Listen, Kane's no slouch. I mean, I think any team would be happy to have him. He can score goals in every single different way. He's got...
Did you answer my question?
What's that? Well, I told you already, yes.
Lewandowski's better, but Madrid should get Kane.
Yes.
If I wanted somebody for next season, I would get Lewandowski.
Right, he's better than Kane.
Lewandowski. I think, as Brian said, he's more polished, he's more experienced, he's done it at the higher level. I think Kane can get to that level, but he hasn't done it at the highest level on a regular basis yet. Long-term, Kane. Short-term, Lewandowski.
100% agree with Craig. Lewandowski's going to be 30 this year.
And Brian. Brian said the same.
And Brian, beg your pardon. But I'll tell you what, there's one thing that Kane does that Lewandowski doesn't, and that scores goals from outside the box. So if Real Madrid are looking for a guy that absolutely does everything, then Kane's your man.